Hey guys, welcome back. Steve here with 6-Star Automotive. Today we're going to talk about something really important to understand about your car. But before we get started, please like, subscribe, and follow me as we talk about warning lights. So the warning lights that show up in your dash, also known as telltale lights or idiot lights. Idiot lights, I hate that term. The term actually refers to the manufacturers that stopped using gauges and started using lights instead. They thought it was kind of an idiot idea. The idea is that gauges offer a wider range of visualization of a problem and can actually let you see something long before it happens rather than waiting until after the fact when the light comes on. The problem with that is that with newer cars, there's so many systems that are monitored that the amount of gauges you would have would make your vehicle look like a cockpit. And let's be honest, most people are so intimidated by how complex their car is already. Simplifying all of these potential issues into recognizable lights has made it easier for the layman to understand. The best way to understand the warning lights that can happen on your specific vehicle is to take some time away from your phone and pull out the owner's manual. There's always a section in your owner's manual that will describe the types of lights that can come on and exactly what they mean. It's a good idea to take some time before you ever see them to understand what they are. Knowing which ones are more important than others and knowing when to stop driving and when you can keep driving can again save you a lot of money. Warning lights are usually separated by severity, by color, with green and blue being normal, and amber and red being from moderate to severe importance. So all the lights that come on your dash are important, but let's go over a couple of the most crucial ones. The first one is your oil pressure light. This light is designed to come on if your engine loses oil pressure. This is very important because engines can only run for a few minutes without oil pressure without causing serious internal damage. This light can come on for many reasons, for something as simple as a sensor failure to internal engine damage to just a low oil level because of a leak. If you ever see the oil pressure light come on, you should stop driving immediately and tow your vehicle to the nearest service center. It's really not worth the risk. The next one is the coolant temperature light. It usually looks something like this. This light comes on if your engine gets too hot. Just like if it loses oil pressure, it can cause internal damage if it overheats. The metal inside your engine is only designed to handle a certain amount of heat before it can be damaged either by warping or melting sometimes. Excessive heat can also cause the heads that are bolted to the top of your engine block to warp, and that's what causes a blown head gasket. If your car doesn't have a temperature gauge and only has a temperature warning light for the coolant, you really should stop driving immediately and tow it to the nearest service center. If you do have a gauge rather than a warning light, if you see that temperature start to climb, one trick that you can do, especially if you don't smell coolant, if you smell coolant, you should stop driving immediately, but if you don't, you can turn your heater on full. That can actually add a secondary cooling effect that can buy you a little bit more time. It's still always a better idea to stop driving if you see that light and tow it to the service center. Next is your brake light. It could look something like this or this or this. There are a couple of things that can turn your brake light on, but generally it comes on because of a low brake level. There's a sensor inside of your master cylinder that can command on the brake light if it gets below that minimum level. If you watch my video on brake fluid, you'll know that that system is sealed and really should never get low enough to turn that light on. If it does, it's very possible that you have a leak and you should not ignore that. If you see the brake light on and anything feels funny with your brake pedal, you should stop driving immediately and tow it to the service center. There's a different brake light that will come on when your parking brake is set, and also for another reason we'll get to in just a second, the battery light. So this light can be confusing to a lot of people. I can't say that your vehicle doesn't monitor the battery. Most modern vehicles do monitor the battery to some extent, but the light doesn't mean that you need a battery necessarily. The battery light is actually an indication of a problem with the charging system. It means that the voltage in your charging system is lower than expected for the specific conditions. Most don't know that your battery doesn't actually run your vehicle while it's running. The only real purpose of the battery is to start the vehicle. Batteries are designed to have high amperage loads for very short periods of time. They're not designed for small amperage loads over long periods of time. That's deep cycle batteries. We can get into that later. But as soon as the vehicle starts, the battery then having been drained is slowly replenished by the alternator as it powers the rest of the vehicle as well. So if your alternator fails, your vehicle has to run off of the voltage from the battery, and it can only do that so long before the voltage drops so low. When voltage drops in computer control circuits, computers can do all kinds of crazy things. They need a very specific amount of voltage in order to function, and if it goes below that, you can have lights come on, you can have things go crazy, you can have engines shifting funny, and it can cause all kinds of problems. So if you see that light come on, you really really shouldn't keep driving. You should bring it to us. So the last light and the most confusing is the malfunction indicator light. It's also been called the service engine soon light and the check engine light. In 1996, when the OBD2 system was standardized, the name of it was changed to the malfunction indicator lamp. Now every manufacturer has to use the same connector and the same set of base code numbers in order to signify the most common failures. Manufacturers still have the freedom to have vehicle-specific and manufacturer-specific codes that most generic code scanners can't read, which is one of the reasons why you'll need to have a more specific scanner for that. One commonality with any check engine light or malfunction indicator lamp is that they're always going to be related to an emissions failure. Whether the vehicle has a check engine light for a misfire, or a lean condition, or a rich condition, or an oxygen sensor, or anything like that, all of those failures will affect emissions. So one thing to really understand is that connecting a scan tool to a vehicle does not diagnose the vehicle. It's very common for the codes that are set to be completely unrelated to the actual problem. Diagnostics is extremely important. That's where a highly trained technician comes in. The code that the vehicle sets only indicates the circuit in which the failure has occurred. It doesn't know the exact cause. So if it says oxygen sensor bank 1, it doesn't mean that you need to replace the oxygen sensor necessarily. It can. There can also be many different reasons for that code, not just the sensor itself. So spending the money on a sensor can actually just be a waste. I cannot stress the importance. I actually had a sign made that says diagnosis is the cornerstone of automotive care. It's actually a play off of a saying in the medical field. There's not a whole lot different between what we do and what doctors do. So if the check engine light comes on steady and you don't notice any kind of specific drivability problems, usually it's okay to schedule the problem and come in and have us diagnose it. It's always best though to stop by anytime. We'll pull the code for free and we can help triage the situation and give you an idea of the severity that we think we're dealing with. If the check engine light flashes, you should stop driving immediately. Generally the only reason that this happens is for a catalyst damaging misfire. So it can get extremely expensive if you keep driving with that check engine light flashing. A really important thing to understand is that manufacturers have recognized that people don't necessarily stop anymore when their check engine light comes on. So what you probably have noticed already is that if your check engine light comes on, a lot of lights will come on at the same time. So the reasoning behind that is multifaceted. So because the other systems in your vehicle rely on the engine and it running smoothly to operate, instead of putting extra strain on that engine, it shuts off those systems. Usually your traction control, your cruise control, and your brake light will come on at the same time the check engine light comes on. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have problems in all those systems, but just know that that does happen. The manufacturers realize that the more lights they turn on at the same time, the more likely they are to get your attention and get you to stop. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, please like and subscribe. I hope these videos help you to learn a bit more about your car and come on by to experience a 6-star difference for yourself.